Hello everybody and welcome to this first look video for the upcoming 1.2 Cicero update to Imperator ROME, which is expected to arrive at some point in September. In the meantime, you can play the 1.2 Cicero beta if you want. You have to opt into this on Steam. You can see a bunch of listed changes that are there. Things are being added, things are being kind of removed, and there's missing a bunch of art, and there's bugs all over the place. I never really like to play these updates because of those things I just mentioned, but essentially, people have been twisting my arm online. It's kind of my job, I suppose, to do it. So I thought, yeah, okay, we'll download it, we'll give it a go. And I'm really glad I did. It's actually really great. It's making some huge strides in terms of the game's direction, and I'm really quite impressed and amazed at how much of the core design is just being ripped out and reworked in such a short amount of time. It actually has had me a little worried at first that they were going to try and remove and do such major things in such a short time, because if they don't get it right, you'll end up with a really messy game. But it seems like it's in good hands. Things are definitely trending in the right direction, in my opinion. And I wanted to take the time in this video to go through some of those features and mechanics and talk through what they're doing right, what I think they need to maybe work on, and basically where they can go from there. So before we get into it, it's worth noting I am running just one mod during this. It doesn't affect gameplay, but it changes the icons of what's missing in the beta. So the beta has a lot of icons and new kind of things that you can mess with that just don't have art attached to them yet. A modder has gone in there and basically filled in the art for a lot of places that he could, or she. I'm not too sure what the mod is called, I've forgotten already, but I'll link it in the description to make sure people can get it if they want. I recommend it. It just gives that little bit of polish to the beta to kind of make it a little bit more playable. So let's dive into the features of what this update is planning to do. Essentially, the main thing that it's addressing and changing is the removal of mana or monarch power. You may remember monarch power sat up here. There was 4 of them, and it tied to the skills that a ruler or that your characters would have. Your ruler's skills actually contributed directly to the income of that mana power. Now that's all gone, so we won't even bother going over it. It's just not a thing anymore. Now you've got something which is another mana resource, technically, called political influence. Political influence is much more interesting and much more clever in my opinion, because it actually ties to a series of characters in your government. Everyone that operates an office in your government has a loyalty, and that loyalty rating contributes to the amount of political influence that you earn per month. So based on how well you're treating people in your government and how well they respect you and like you, they're loyal, that's actually going to increase your income and allow you to do more things. And we'll talk about what those things are in a second. The other thing that holds it back is actually the ruler's corruption. So the more corrupt he is, this number from your offices is going to be diminished. It's a really interesting play because it encourages you to look after your characters. Previously, it was basically random and you couldn't do much about it. So a great first step. So what is political influence largely used for? Well, essentially, changing laws requires quite a bit of influence. Getting diplomatic deals, pretty much anything you want to do, requires some sort of influence, whether or not you want to improve relations, fabricate a claim, things like that. They're going to be requiring political influence. And you'll see it pop up a little bit here and there throughout. But technologies, trade, moving pops, it doesn't use political influence. It's typically things that your government are definitely going to be directly impacting. So it makes just a hell of a lot more sense. You're not going to be like, well, why would a pop's changing its culture cost me like influence? It doesn't. So it's great. So it's really just restricted to a political currency that is generated by people who are in politics and in your government doing well. It's a really great way to represent it, I feel, and it's the fact that you can actually change it and interact with it is extremely important. So that's great. That's the first kind of thing. And we'll touch on it just a little bit later if we see it crop up again. The next thing is military experience. Now, military experience, again, is technically another type of mana resource, but it's grounded in reality, grounded in a more realistic fashion at least. So military experience is basically the sum total of all your army's experience. So for those who don't know, if you somehow didn't know this, every unit in the game has an experience meter, and it slowly decays over time if you're not fighting. But if you are fighting and winning and surviving and stuff like that, it builds up and up and up. The more of that you have across all of your armies together, the more it contributes to your military experience growing. Now, it grows by a base amount anyway, so everyone kind of gets this free amount, and you can get more through technology, but essentially, those who are being aggressive will get a little more, but not always, because if you want, you can actually drill your armies, and this is an example of an icon that's missing. By drilling an army, you're increasing the maintenance cost of that army, but they're going to be gaining experience. So it can be worth a nation that wants to kind of play tall or stay small, drilling their armies constantly if they can afford it, because that's going to build up their military experience. And what they use that on is buying traditions. So unlike before where you had a martial kind of number that just ticked up, now it's actually how aggressive you are, how experienced your armies are, will allow you to advance your sort of military tech tree. Much, much better. Having that direct one-to-one connection between the two and allowing you to influence it is a much smarter move, and it feels way better to use. The next thing along is stability. Stability is now changed, and I think some of this stuff might be in the previous update, but whatever. Stability is now changed from a 0 to 100 kind of meter. I keep clicking it, sorry. It's changed from a 0 to 100 meter. If it's at 100, you're at max. If you're at 0, you're at the minimum. Essentially, it always gravitates towards the center. It always gravitates towards 50. The higher you go, the more population growth you have. For a monarchy, you have more legitimacy, research points, commerce income, and it increases the threshold for rebellions and civil wars. Again, you're more stable. It makes a lot of sense. Now, you can increase this by sacrificing to the gods. This is actually something that will require political influence. So I think this one's a little bit strange because it's supposed to be sort of religious, but I think its cost is actually based on your religious unity and a few other things. Either way, it is your political influence that you're going to be spending to sacrifice to the gods, which will give this a giant nudge in the direction that you want it to go for about 5 years, and then after that wears off, it'll start ticking back down. So essentially it's just a push and pull. You're always trying to kind of keep hitting it with modifiers to keep pushing it harder and harder, but the higher it goes, the more it tries to pull itself back towards the center. So this alone probably won't even be enough. You'd need to do other things like events and just a few other things like technologies and things to make it buff up a bit more. So stability, even though it's not a radical change from what it was before it was a -3 to a +3, now it again just feels a lot more rewarding to use. And because this is a much more limited resource, you don't have 4 resources, one just dedicated to religion, spending political influence to do that is really a necessity at certain times versus using it to do trade deals or to do, well, not trade deals, but diplomatic deals. So again, a brilliant trade-off. So far, these 3 things working awesome in my opinion. So the next thing I want to mention is loyalty and power base. Essentially, if we checked out this army here, we can see that a bunch of the troops here are loyal to our character Agathocles. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the ones that aren't loyal, and we're just going to keep the ones that are. Now what we can do here, which is interesting, is we can disband these units, but they cost twice the amount to disband them as they would if they weren't loyal. So because they're loyal, they're double the cost to get rid of. They also become loyal to the character. They stay loyal to the character forever. They will be loyal veterans attached to the character and will increase their power base. So let's remove them. Now if we get that character back just really quickly, and we check him out, we can now see that in his power base, he has loyal veterans plus 13. Now power base is basically represents the influence that they have as a character. How influential are they? How powerful are they in terms of their connections, their wealth, their position, their holdings, and do they have any troops to their name? This guy now has 13.08 worth of loyal veterans, and that actually lowers his loyalty. His loyal veterans are going to detract from his loyalty at 0.26. So he's going to have a struggle now with his loyalty because he has these loyal characters to his name. I just find this to be particularly interesting because it means that this character is now going to go slowly and slowly less loyal, and now he has a stronger power base. These two are totally the antithesis of each other. You do not want low loyalty with a higher power base, and this encourages that. So it's a really interesting dynamic where if you have troops that become loyal to someone and you end up disbanding them, getting rid of them, his loyalty is going to fall, and if he's powerful, he's going to raise those troops again. And in a way, obviously it's not the exact same people, but you can imagine they are the same people. They kind of represent the same people. The loyal veterans that he raises to his name in aid of a civil war, they're going to follow him. So it's a really interesting way of saying, like, I'm going to get rid of the troops, I'm going to game the game, but not really, because they're always going to stay with him. So I really like that feature. The next thing I want to touch on is empire building and province management. So if we check out this city here, and we'll just collapse the province for now, we can check out this UI screen. So a lot has changed here. There's a ton of buildings, there's 15 buildings, things have all moved around. I mean, I think this UI is absolutely disgusting, but there it is. We'll maybe talk about it a bit later. I don't want to really interject my opinion on that too much. I think it's awful. That's about it. First of all, want to look at the pops. So the pops, without mana to help pops assimilate, convert, change, it's all done just over time now. So essentially you have culture, religion, and classes. Culture can change over time. It's currently changing. A Dacian pop here is changing to what I'm playing as Thracian. So they're currently just assimilating on their own over time at 1% per month. So really slow speed, but in 100 months, this Dacian pop will become Thracian. The same would happen for religion if they weren't all Hellenic, and the same kind of happens over time for classes. Tribesmen will eventually promote to freemen, and I think freemen actually promote to citizens, I believe. I'm not sure too much if slaves promote to freemen. I think there is a chance based on if they're not working any of the resources and things like that, or if they're in holdings. So basically, it's a more organic system. Things are converting over time without direct input from you, but you can directly affect it. And the way you do that is with buildings and then policies. So we're based on the city level right now. We're at the city of Byzantium. And if we were to improve the speed of which we convert this Dacian pop, we could build a theater. So a theater is going to make the people that are already Thracian quite happy, and it's going to increase the speed at which people who are not Thracian convert. And you can do that sort of thing for religion, and you can do that sort of thing for classes, and so on and so forth. You can speed these things up with buildings. It's a much better system in my opinion. Greatly admire that system. It's just much more natural and rewarding and organic, and it doesn't have that instant payoff. It's a slow building payoff, and it's harder to manage as a result, which is really good. You know, if you have a city on the fringe of your empire, or a bunch of cities where you know that there's just not many pops of your type, what you could do is increase migration and increase the amount of theaters. That way you'd be pulling pops into that area, and then you'd be converting them. So I really like the ability to be able to do that. So we just touched on migration there for a second, and if we check a city maybe over here, this one particularly has a lot of migration. I just remember it does. So basically migration can seem a little complicated. We'll just cover that other screen for now because it's just a disaster. Essentially migration is working here. So this is a pop that's emigrating, and these are pops that are migrating in. So we have a lot of pops coming in here, and there's a various amount of reasons for why that is. So essentially this is just these numbers here on the right are basically where they're coming from and the reason from that area. So let's say we have one coming from Oroni, right? A Hellenic Thracian pop is migrating here. We've actually got, you know, we can expect the pops to grow here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 pops are going to grow here in the next, you know, not too long, few months or whatever, few years or whatever. That's a lot. You don't normally ever get that in the base game. Now with migration, that's quite possible. And the migration attraction is usually the number that's going to basically determine how many pops are coming in at once and why and from where. So as long as your migration attraction is high and the migration attraction of somewhere else is low, then it's going to pull towards this direction. That's basically how it works. This is going to be based on your civilization value, the fact that this is a province capital, the fact that it has a port, and the fact that it's got plenty of room for new pops. As it starts to fill up, that number is going to go down, and things will kind of acclimate and balance out. So essentially we said that this is coming from, this pop in particular is coming from Oroni, and there's a 35% or 0.35% increase per month, and that's coming from the fact that there's 4 ports and the corruption of the ruler in general, I think. So that's Oroni here. There's 4 ports in this province. There's one here, one here, one here, and one here. Not easy to see, but once you kind of learn your own provinces, you know that stuff. And because of those 4, we can see that this Hellenic Thracian is sending off towards Chile. Is it? Chile. And that's basically how migration works. So it is a passive thing, but again, you can influence it with buildings. If you were to build an aqueduct, you're going to grow your own population increase, and you're also going to increase that migration attraction by 0.50. So all the numbers are really slow. Every building is some sort of modifier. So it's not crazy interesting in my opinion, but it's definitely a lot better than just having the 4 that we had before. It's more like development points. You know, how do you want to spec your stuff? Do you want to have a lot of conversion, a lot of attraction? Do you want to just kind of double down on the money that you have, the supply that you have, so on and so forth? That's how the building system essentially works. it's a lot better. You know, if you want to convert these things yourself, you just can't. These pops, you just have to build and use policies correctly. So now there's policies. Let's get rid of this screen. There's policies for entire provinces, which are going to still do the same thing, you know, the cultural assimilation. They're going to do the religious conversion. They can even centralize and decentralize. That's an interesting one. It's actually based on the province just itself. It's not going to be pulling in people from far away. Essentially, if we have this province here and we have a look at all the cities, we can see that there's 39 pops here and so on and so forth down, right? 39 and then 15. So we can say that this is kind of overpopulated in a way compared to what's around us. Now, we might want that or we might not want it, depending on what we're feeling like or what we've built here perhaps. So what we could do is to kind of spread that out amongst everyone is we could decentralize the population, and that's going to cost us, I actually don't know what this costs us to enact. Oh yeah, it costs you 12 political influence. Okay, that's good to know. Oh, that's interesting to know then. I guess policies also are affected by political influence. Anyway, so decentralizing the population is going to encourage migration attraction -5 out of the capital of that province, and then increase it and increase the speed as well at which they go for all the surrounding cities. So every city around here is going to get an increase in which migration happens and the chance of it happening, whereas the capital is going to get a decrease. So pretty simple stuff, but that's how you would spread pops out naturally into a province if you were overpopulated in one area. I'd say that's typically a good thing for your capital, because often you can pile in slaves and you might want to ship them out. Or, well, I guess with slaves you move them yourself. Actually, last thing then to mention on the pop front is, like I said, slaves are going to be moving themselves. Or you're going to move them. They don't move themselves, rather. So slaves are the only pops you can move, and you move them by paying money. It's a pretty low amount. It's 4.5 gold at the moment because of my export of vegetables, which is 10%. So typically it's 5 gold at the moment to move a pop. And you basically just move, yeah, this is, I mean, it's terrible UI again. I mean, this one's probably at least not finished. But essentially there's 5 pops here in this place, 5 pops blah, 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 in all these different cities. All in the same province, which I don't know why it tells me that, but the city is usually what I would... Oh yeah, sorry, the cities are here. So those are the ones we can move, and the types and the culture and stuff. So maybe if you just wanted to get rid of all the weird cultures of slaves that you have, you can move them all to a certain place, and then you could be assimilating them as they work the different resources. So that's kind of how that all works. On this screen as well, you can also do new things with... it's again another sort of development. You pay 100 political influence to install provincial procurators, infrastructure spending, investments for business, or religious endowments. Now these 4 things are essentially just going to be a permanent buff. You take this debuff for 2 years and then you get a permanent buff forever after. So for instance, if you want extra import routes, you just click this button, you pay 100 influence, and then 2 years later you get a new import route for the rest of the game. And you can do that as many times as you want, I believe. It just costs you influence every time you do it. And the very last thing then will be down here in the domestic side of things. You can then pay, again, political influence to increase your civilization level and your civilization change until the end of the game. Now, I don't know how many times you can do this, but that seems quite powerful if you're able to do that multiple times, because it's a lot cheaper than these ones were up here. Alright, so the last thing I want to mention is character interactions. So characters now have a bunch of different interactions and a few extra ones based on who they are, what position they're in, or what they could do. Let's have a look if we can see anyone with a few more. Yep, so we've got things like bring to trial, give free, well, we've had those before, impose corruption sanctions, holding, grant a holding, things like that. So granting holdings are going to give them more power base, it's going to earn them more money, but it's going to give them more loyalty. Bringing to trial, you know, if a character is really low on loyalty, you can bring them to trial and kind of based on a few different things, you know, based on their popularity, based on their loyalty, based on my ruler's popularity, my money, their money, we'll get different outcomes and stuff. So we could go, okay, boom, trial. Our leader is calling them to trial. Now it says this option is available due to having a monarchy. This option is available due to his low popularity. And they're going to do different things, and it's going to go on for a while. And these are quite different, actually. There's actually quite a lot of outcomes based on the different traits and stuff that people can have. And you're trying to basically make a case for the trial of getting this guy into jail. I'll just click through them. We're not going to listen to it, but hey, it worked. You got guilty as charged. We did rack up a little bit of tyranny for doing that, though. I think, you know, ultimately you can do it where that never happens. You can also arrange a gladiatorial debut. Jesus, that was loud again. And we can pitch this guy against this guy. Cast your votes now. Is it going to be Euthocrates or is it going to be Scorus Dutarii? They're both 3 martial. I don't know if that really affects it or not, but let's have a look. Trial by combat. Oh, Euthocrates, get wrecked. And Scorus is going to be... He's going to be freed. He's about to die, though. So, you know, that's just the way it is. I don't really know why his health is deteriorating so bad. Just because he's in prison. Oh, he's going to actually get better now. That's good. So it's just stuff like that. You know, these little character interactions are actually quite fun. You know, some of them are obviously from before, but some of them are new. And then you affect the schemes. You know, if you want this guy, if you want this government to now be a little bit better, we have martial, finesse, charisma, and zeal, both being contributed from the ruler and the consort. And essentially, these 2 people are going to combine their skills together and provide you with buffs, right? Zeal is going to give you better war exhaustion. Charisma is going to reduce the claim or increase the claim fabrication speed and reduce tyranny. Finesse is going to reduce the costs of building things. This is going to increase manpower and army morale. So these are very important to have and have them be good. And they're a little bit random, but at least now you can actually offset your ruler with someone better if you have a particularly bad ruler. You can choose to get a character when you arrange a marriage for yourself that actually has good stats. You know, I arranged a marriage with this character for that reason. She had great stats, so it made a lot of sense to do it. And you can see 987, she carries him basically. A few other things that are in this kind of government board are the War Council, the Oaths of Allegiance, holding games, and patronizing the arts. So again, this is another use of political influence. Essentially, you can do something called summoning a War Council. Your War Council is going to be made up of basically the offices of people that are coming from here, the kind of 2 martial things, and the one that's like the foreign policy dude. So the foreign policy dude, the 2 martial guys kind of come together and they give you suggestions of where they should go. Sometimes you might only get 1 suggestion, you might get 2, you might get 3, and here we have 4. The 4th is always, you know, just this is not going to do anything. I'm not going to go with them. And essentially it builds a case for where we should go and why. And they actually have a bit of writing back to it, which is quite nice as well. So they're building a case. This guy is saying like, yeah, we should prepare for war with Bithynia. We should prepare for war. We should march to Istros. We should conquer Tyrus. And choosing one of these options will give loyalty to the person whose option we chose. And it'll lower the loyalty of the options we didn't choose. But it'll also give us a free claim on that area instantly. Whereas now, typically, if you want to build a claim, you actually have to go to a nation, go convert and fabricate a claim, which takes time. It takes about a year or 2 to build a claim now. So this is going to be a nice way of getting one instantly, although you don't get to have direct control over where it is you're going. So let's say Bithynia, right? So the province of Heracleotis. So let's just look that up really quickly. Heracleotis. So Heracleotis is that province there, the one that's highlighted in blue now. And that would be a perfect one to kind of go to next. Bithynia are here. They've only got 1 city. Actually, they've got 2. So they got 1 there and 1 here. And then we get claims on this province. So that'd be an interesting war. You know, I'd probably go with that one. Boom. And then that should give us a claim on this area. So that's pretty much it for, I think, most of the stuff that's arriving in 1.2 Cicero beta. Big rework to this stuff. Like I said, the character interactions, how this political influence works now is way, way better. Of course, this is building now on top of the 1.1 update, which has navies. Played around with them for a bit. Have my different navies going around dealing with pirates. I find it a lot of fun. Pirates are particularly annoying, but I think that is the point. The only thing I would give some feedback on that is they instantly raid ports. I do feel like it should take about a month or 2 months to raid a port successfully, just because they arrive and as the second they arrive, they leave. But anyway, yeah, so the pirates and the navy stuff is adding a huge dynamic to the game. I'm currently in a war now at the moment with Sarmatia, backing up the Bosporan Kingdom, so we're going to hop on the boats, head up there, make some landings, bring some heavy boats and see if I can take back some of these coastal cities without even having to have my armies there. That stuff is really great. So the game, I mean, props to Paradox. They're really pushing it in a great direction in a very, very quick way. Like I said, I won't spend too much time on it, but my only problem, well, I've got a few problems to be honest, but one problem I have with the game still is the UI. I think the UI is really, really bad. Really, really, really bad. And, you know, if Paradox don't know why, and they can't figure out why, I would just love it if they emailed me, or someone emailed me, or if I just do a video on it eventually, discussing what I think could be done to really clean this up, make it way neater. You know, one problem I have, this is just almost a side problem, is like every city Every city, no matter where it is in the world, looks the exact same. You know, so I know for a lot of people, flavor in this game is really stale, right? Every country feels the same, and I think that's like a little problem in itself, that the art is really, really low when it comes to that stuff. You've only got 4 pops, like why not have them use the portrait generator to have 4 representations of like the most dominant culture there? Like why not? That would be kind of cool. Make it look a lot more pretty, and it would make it just look, it would space things out a bit more. I don't know why everything is crammed into this. You got 15 buildings here. Just show me the ones I've built and then let me click something that opens the option for 15, like the other 15. Do I need to have it as a plus and minus thing? I don't know. Maybe at scale when you're huge. Even then, I don't think so. I think it should be collapsible. Like, I just think this is a huge amount of wasted space. Every little plus and minus to every single building when you're never going to have all. You're just not. There's no point. Not really, anyway. So that's just a little bit of feedback. That's pretty much all. I don't want to go into rant mode. I could go on for days, and this video is already quite long. This is one of the first videos where I've just gone off script and just talked my way through it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It allows me to get videos out a lot quicker because I spend a lot of time scripting and reciting the scripts and trying to edit and get everything really, really good and nice. Hopefully this is still of high enough quality that people like it, and if it allows me to get videos out faster and nobody minds, then I'll try to switch to this method a little bit more in the future. Although reviews, I think I still like to script those. And that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to get more involved in Republic of Play, check out our Discord. If you want to help the channel out, I am a small channel. I think people think I make way more than I do. Patreon will be a huge, huge help and allow me to do more frequently. So I really appreciate the people that we have there. If we get to 100 patrons, I'd actually be able to start a podcast, which I'd really like to be able to do as well, about PC and strategy games. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.